by Lee Powers, followed by the invocation by Pete.
Heavenly Father, we gather here today with gratitude for the opportunity to serve our community. We ask for your guidance and wisdom as we discuss and deliberate the matters entrusted to us. May our decisions be guided by justice, integrity, and compassion, reflecting the needs and the hopes of those that we represent. Help us to listen with open hearts, respect differing perspectives, fostering collaboration and unity. May we work not for personal gain, but for the well-being of all. Grant us the courage to face challenges with grace and resilience, and the humility to acknowledge our limitations. Inspire us to lead with kindness and to leave a legacy of hope and prosperity for future generations. In a spirit of peace and mutual respect, we ask for your blessing on this meeting and for our city that we are privileged to serve. In your name we pray.
Amen. Thank you, Pete. There being no citizens to be heard, brings us to item number 4, City Council comments. Lee?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Like everybody here, I'm very grateful for that brief respite of rain we had last night. The light show was nice. I wasn't especially enthused by the accompanying noise, nor was my bulldog. So for those of you who got beneficial rain last night, good for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Pete?
Yeah, just welcome to all. It's great to have a full house here.
Conrad?
Good to see everyone here. Thankful for the rain, and we had a meeting a few days ago with HOA, heads of HOA, and that was really great, and I appreciate getting that set up. Thank you.
Maggie?
All right, it's nice to see everyone this evening, and again, the rain was fabulous, and we are glad that God was looking upon us, and now that he knows that we love it so much, he's gonna send some more, so everybody get ready on their gardens. And don't forget our Raptors, on April 12th. If you're interested in seeing, a beautiful wildlife show with some raptors, and on our, near Arbor Day, the Women's Club is having it's not an auction, a fundraiser, dinner at Paisanos, and if you're interested, come let one of us know, because it's going to be quite an event. Thank you.
Thank you. Buddy?
Oh, welcome everyone.
Okay, thank you, buddy. Brings us to item number 5. Proclamations, presentations, and commendations. We have 3 proclamations this month. The first one is to recognize our 2-time winner of the Chavano Park Medal for Fiesta. Ruth, we loved your entry, and we loved this one too. And we are so happy to have you with us. I've got a proclamation here for you, and I'd like for you to come forward. I'm going to come around, and we're going to turn on the lights, and we're going to get a picture of you receiving the proclamation from the city. I hope that you find this suitable for hanging.
I gotta set it up, yeah. This is going on the family newsletter. Yeah.
But you can see the rough end that Ruth put together, Families 2024, Growing, Thriving, a Strong Foundation, Chavano Park Fiesta. And you can see our swing sets there. Thank you, Ruth. It's very clever. 2 years ago, we were doing a road project, and Ruth's project was, it was a steamroller. Yeah, it's a steamroller, but paving the future. Paving the future for Chavano Park. It was very clever. Very clever. Yes, but that was because Lee won that.
want to thank you for your paving the way. That was a classic. That is just my all-time favorite. That was so, perfect. Thank you.
Mayor, shall I?
Yes, please, please. And just because we gave you a medal doesn't mean you have to stay with the Thompsons all the way until Fiesta. That's only about 4 weeks out, and like fish, you may get a little bit smelly by the time that Fiesta arrives. So no, she loves you, but I don't know that much. Okay, our next proclamation, recognition Methodist Landmark for their donation and support of the 2024 holiday sponsorship event. We absolutely positively rely upon our corporate partners to make Chavano Park special. And Methodist Landmark has been one of those people that has been absolutely a game changer for us, but not only here in the city, but also with the Chavano Park women. And the Chavano Park women are the beginning and end of Chavano Park. Without them, nothing would be happening today. We are blessed today to have Jennifer Scarcliffe and Whitney Babb with us. And would you ladies come forward to receive our proclamation?
Get centered in the room so we can get a good picture.
Okay, well, we get to shake hands, and you get to take this as well, and hold on to it. We certainly do appreciate y'all being one of our corporate citizens. You're making a gigantic difference for us. We hope that we have many more years together, and Maggie was soliciting you to show up for the birds of prey, because it is going to be an amazing presentation. We'll have a 45-minute presentation by, what is the name of the group that's coming? Well, Chavano Park, we have 11 different birds of prey in the city. And peregrine falcons, I just saw a couple in my yard on Saturday, so this is very good. I hope that you enjoy it, and hope we have a super fiesta.
Well, thank you for this kind offer and just the opportunity to support you all as a community in these events, but also to support you all as your healthcare provider, really your community hospital of choice at Methodist Landmark. We hope you see us, able to meet all of your needs from bumps and scrapes to surgeries and more intensive care. So thank you for hosting us this evening. It's a great honor.
I wouldn't have had my children any place other than with Methodist, so.
Well, thank you.
Thank y'all. And our final proclamation concerns Arbor Day. The United States started Arbor Day in 1872, recognizing the importance of planting trees because we were planting lots and lots of crops and not bringing any trees back. And so Sterling Morton started this back then. Chavano Park's been doing this 10 years. This may be the 11th year that we've done this, Bill? I think this is our 11th year to do this. We are TreeWise City USA. We are a certified a certified Wildlife Federation certified community. At the point that we were certified, one of 4 communities in the state of Texas. We're very, very serious about this. And during the Arbor Day process over the last 10 years, with the assistance of Friends of Chavano, Going Green in Chavano Park, and CPS and SAWS, we've given away literally thousands of trees into our community. And we're very excited about that. Maggie, why don't you say a few things about Arbor Day, if you don't mind, and if you'd use the mic.
Got it. Well, Arbor Day has just grown and grown within Chavano Park. And the adults have loved it, and our small children and middle-sized children and large children have all loved it. It has just grown. We have planted more things than God would give us. He's learned a lot of things too. And it's just something for every community. And we're going to have, with the Raptors for sure. We're going to have a full show out underneath the trees. We haven't lost one yet, but we're going to have the rides for the kids. Do we have that? We change it up every year, so that makes it nice. And we do honoring the plantings. We put out crepe myrtles. We've put out elm trees. We've put out oak trees.
And somebody even put out a pecan tree in Chavano Park, where we have the hardest limestone in Texas, about 6 inches below
We
the
have
surface.
one pecan tree
in the whole
Long Lay
city.
it lives.
Yes,
Yes.
but it's thriving. It got 6 pecans last year.
We're gonna, it was a banner year. We thank you so much. And well, the ladies from Methodist Hospital are here. Also, you have helped our women's club so much this year that, and we want to give it back to our community. And we thank you so much for doing that and for being here this evening. Oh, I want to punch that one in. So Arbor Day, you'll like that too.
You
That's
really will love it.
April 12th, that's Saturday from 10 to 1. Are we having food this year? I haven't heard.
Hot dogs,
Hot dogs. Oh, can't go
cooked
wrong
by the
there.
fire department.
Fire department. That's even better. Yes. And we let you come back and do that again this year. Perfect. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. Brings us to item number 6, consent agenda. All matters listed under this item are considered routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired by any alderman on any item, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately at the end of the regular agenda. Do I have a motion to approve and/or accept items 6.1 through 6.7?
So moved.
We have a motion from Pete. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Maggie. There being no discussion, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. The motion carries 5-0. Item number 7, city manager report. All items listed in this item are considered routine by the city council and will only be considered at the request of one or more aldermen. Coincident with each item listed, discussion will generally occur at the end of the regular agenda. Would anybody like to pull any of items 7.1 through 7.6? There being no request, it brings us to item number 8, regular agenda items. 8.1, discussion action, consideration of statements of qualification for municipal judges, court prosecutors, and city attorney. Bill.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. As you know, about 2 months ago, we reviewed our contracts, our annual contracts, and we have a laundry list of reoccurring contracts, and periodically we look at our contracts and we determine whether or not we're going to go out for bids or proposals or qualifications and so forth. That's the big picture. This year was a abnormally high quantity of numbers that were due to come up, primarily focused in on the judge and the prosecutor because the judge's terms is 2 years. So as it would have it, council gave us direction to go out for qualifications for all legal activities at once, the judge, the prosecutor, and the city attorney. So that was on the January 27th meeting, and that's where we were. We released RFQ request for qualifications on the February 23rd for the municipal judge, prosecutor, and then on February 19th we released the RFQ for the attorney. All of those were due on March 12th. Next slide. We've received a number of qualifications, statements, and packets that have been put together. And so in your individual packets that we provided a Dropbox, each one of you received the qualifications that were submitted by all the judges, by all the prosecutors, by all the city attorneys. In this case, staff has, and we got a lot of things going on, frankly. We've got the drainage project, we've got signs, we've got a number of things going on, and this is obviously very important to us, and it's primarily a council action. We have not provided any specific analysis or recommendations of these qualifications at this time. I will point out that our current judge, Judge Remy, did not submit a qualification, and then our current prosecutor did not submit a qualification for prosecutor. So it looks like that we're going to be, no matter what, selecting a new primary judge and prosecutor. And then, of course, we, in the terms of the city attorney, Denton Navarro, Rodriguez, Bernard, Santee, and Zek have submitted a qualification. With me here to my left is Paul. Paul, want to introduce yourself? Wayland? Windland? Yes.
Windland, yes.
Paul Windland. And so we're going to visit a little bit later on, and we've got that. So a lot of these qualifications have been submitted before. We're familiar with Alan Borkowitz's firm, Garza's firm, Santee's firm, Ryan Henry's firm. We don't know Sanchez and Wilson yet much, but you've got all those packets there. So we don't have a recommendation, and I'll pause there.
Okay. At this time, I'll entertain a motion, Pete.
Yeah, so one of the things is you kind of look at these positions, these are critical positions within our city. They play a very, very important part, and I don't think the selection of these should be taken lightly. I think it deserves a little bit of reflection and investigation. So I'd like to propose a motion that we establish a review committee to include both the mayor and Alderman Maggie Couts to evaluate the submissions and provide the city council with a recommendation. And as I look at city council and the mayor, we have a lot of talent on this council, and I think that we all bring a certain aspect of knowledge, and the mayor's knowledge about law and the dealings of that, I think, make him a very strong candidate to help with that committee. Also, when you look at Maggie, Maggie has a background in HR, and I think that makes her a very valuable commodity in this team. So I'll stop there, and that's the motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Conrad. Do we have any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I just want to point out that we do have somebody from Sanchez and Wilson here, Jacob Weissler. He's in attendance, I don't think.
Jacob, do you want to stand up and wave at everybody so that we can see? Thank you, Jacob. Okay, there's been no further discussion. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. The motion carries 5-0. Item 8.2, discussion action, review the possible Turkey Creek Drainage Improvement Project, authorization to fund planning of 40% solution. Bill and Chris, I'll recognize both of you. Bill, are you going to go first?
Yep, so our city engineer, Chris Otto, is here behind me, and we've been working generally in the initial stages of looking at what we're going to do on drainage next. And just as a reminder, back in 2017, we hired KFW Engineers, which is now Collier Engineering, to do a comprehensive drainage study, and they did that. In that study, they identified 12 areas of concern. And then subsequent to that, we went out and we surveyed a lot of our residents. We went out and did on-site visits. We got feedback from them. And from there, we confirmed, it looks like 7 of the areas that really needed focus from the city. And some of the areas were of concern, but the residents said, in the floods of 1998 and 2002, which were the significant flood events that we had, rain events, that there was no significant impact to that local area. So we kind of diverted off of those. In the meantime, starting in 2018, we accomplished 2 of the plans, another one in 2019. We completed a couple of the improvements in 2021. And then the other thing that occurred was in 2020, we further tasked KFW to come up with a preliminary engineering report of De Zavala, Elm Springs, and the area that drains from Northwest Military Highway, Honeybee, Turkey Creek, Longbow, into the Olmos Basin. They produced that document. It was a concept document which had opinions of probable construction costs associated with each project. I'll just, the big picture, we looked at what was the highest priority, and at that time we thought it was De Zavala and Ripple Creek. As we went through our grant process for federal funding, we targeted that project. We were able to secure a $4 million grant from the federal government that's tied into Phase 1 streets. Now, why is all that's important? Because in our comprehensive town plan, we have a 20-year plan for street maintenance, and the next phase of street maintenance is coming right up on us. Because we went out for debt in 2022, we initiated the project for Phase 1 in 2023. We pretty much finished it in 24. We're doing our punch list now on 2025, but in 2027, we're looking at going out for funding request for the next phase. Well, the next phase is right in a drainage area of Turkey Creek, Honeybee, and Longbow. So if we're going to actually reconstruct or redo the streets, we want to take into account the drainage so that we don't actually just fix our streets and then later on we have a big flood. Everyone demands that we do our drainage and then we have to tear up our streets. If we're going to do it all at once, let's do that. In order to do that, our assessment is you need to start about 2 years early, taking it from a concept or an idea from that 2020 plan to some level of planning that can define it. And because we don't have drainage easements on any of these properties, whatever we come up with has to be completely agreed upon by the residents that the property is affecting. Now, some of this area is in the right-of-way. The primary focus of this, and I think I got a slide that I want to show you, the next slide here. Yeah, this is all part of it. I already covered the preliminary engineering study. We're talking about funding now, and so we did in 2022, working with Half Engineering, submitted these 2 projects to, actually all 3 of them, to the Texas Water Development Board, and we have them as approved projects. And so now this focus this year has been engaging the impacted property owners to determine whether or not there's support for this thing, because I don't want to do a whole lot of work and then they say, not on my property. So next slide. So just to review the bidding, the screen on your left, if you're looking at the small screen, is the 100-year floodplain. It's pretty hard to see, but you got from Northwest Military Highway up at the top screen, running down through 2 property owners to Honeybees right here, through 2 other properties, that's Turkey Creek, through 2 other properties, that's Longbow, and then 3 properties over into here, the floodplain, which is called Olmos Basin. In the 2020 plan, over here on your right screen, KFW at the time created some stormwater culverts that would take water off of Northwest Military Highway, would provide potentially some relief from these properties, bring that water down here, shoot it underwater in a culvert through these properties along the streets of Honeybee, then Turkey Creek, and then down all the way here to Longbow, and work this crossing there. So that's an idea. It's what I'm calling an idea right now. It's a concept, and that was about a $3 to $4 million project. TxDOT did the improvements here, but because we had not finished this part of it, they have closed it all up to where they're not going to allow a lot of water to go into here to create more of a problem here until we get this part sorted out. So I've actually been to this property here, Mr. Martin's house, and you can look left and right, and you can see there's culverts, and then you can see that they're only about 4/5 of the way open. There's a small crescent opening to allow some water to flow, but not to overwhelm it. So, as part of my my overview, I've looked at, I'm going to go to the next slide. Well, this just gives you an example. This is not even a heavy rain event. This was one that Curtis and I went down, and it was a couple inches, and we did this, you know, we looked through here, and you can see that this becomes not, you can pass through this, but it's swift, and if you had a big rain event, you know, you could be pushed off that road, and you can be flipped and drown. I think we have one more video. This is behind Hunter's Branch South, and that's the water headed in behind a neighborhood, behind a backyard in a natural drainage flow right here. Again, 2018, it wasn't a big rain, but it was a pretty fast rain that we got some good footage of. And just as a reminder, the two big rain events that occurred were in 1998 and 2002. Next slide. So we originally had an idea that we were going to talk to these four residents here on between Northwest Military Highway and Honeybee. We were going to talk to these four residents between Turkey Creek and Longbow, and that we were going to talk to these residents here on Longbow and Hunters Branch South. As I went and talked to all those people, we identified these properties that are outlined in orange as they needed to be talked to as well. And then once I interviewed them, these folks in the light blue, we needed to identify with them. So we wrote letters to all of them. I personally visited everybody that is highlighted in yellow. Mrs. McManus, I've talked to her on the phone. She's supportive, but she's in the hospital. Expected out pretty soon. And this gentleman here travels a lot, and I've talked to his wife, but not been able to talk to him. But this, supportive here, supportive here. Everyone here has signed the right of entry. It's a temporary 6-month right of entry to allow surveying and assessments. This gentleman here has not signed, and he may not sign. He's a reasonable guy. He said he would keep an open mind, but he was here in 1998 and 2002. His house is on high ground, so the water dumps just off the corner of his property, and then it dumps right back into here. And he was a little leery of signing because not everyone is completely trustworthy, trusting of the government, and we're a government agency. But we had a great conversation. I think when it comes down to it, I said, well, look, if I didn't want anything to happen on my property, I wouldn't allow it. But I sure would want it surveyed so that whatever was developed north of me was accounted for as it crossed my property, and I would have a baseline of what occurred. So we'll see what happens there. I'm reporting that I have general support from all these residents that are supportive to some degree of engineering planning and potentially an engineer project on their property, even though we don't have an easement. And then I've also reported that, you know, while it looks like the drainage flows right on the exact property line here, it actually flows more on this guy's property line than this person's property line. So really, they're concerned about it, but almost no effect there because the culvert's right on this property, and it goes right down that line right here. And it's more on this property than it is this property. But the idea of the plan would be to collect that water here, then to run it down here, and then dump it off here, run it through here where it naturally does. So it already is naturally doing that. It's just a matter of what are the options available, what is the level of rain event that we're defending against, so to speak. Is it a 20-year flood? Is it a 50-year flood? Is it a 100-year flood? It's almost impossible to engineer something for a 500-year flood. It would be probably a lot greater cost to do a 100-year flood, but we need to look at those options associated with that. So that's kind of where we are, and what we had been working with Chris on was at what level do we need to do the planning so that if we're going out to secure funding, either through a congressional grant or even through a debt a debt vehicle of some sort, we would have a targeted, a more narrowly targeted amount of money we're seeking, that we would be more informed. And we really got to get down to, could you go back a few slides to that map right here? We got to go to whether we're going to use the existing channel as it is, or are we going to improve it, widen it, deepen it so that it provides more capacity? Or are we going to put an underground culvert under there that carries some above ground and some below the ground? That's just my initial thoughts. The original plan was let's go underground. But looking at it, if the water originates here and it's acceptable amount, we may be able to do some minor improvements above ground here, and then worry about here the below ground culverts. And then when you get into here, it's pretty well open here, and so you may be able to do an above ground there, which should reduce cost. But so we're looking at the options, but I think we really need to do some planning to do that. If we're looking at going to get debt in 2 years, we need to initiate that planning, in my opinion, sooner. I've asked Chris to come up with a proposal for that. He's worked on that. He's got a draft. Unfortunately, he's got a lot of things going on. We got a lot of things going on, and we didn't get the draft to where I don't have the draft yet, and I just said let's hold off on it, and let's make sure we sharpen our pencils a little bit and work through that. So we're not here. I'm kind of pulled that item, that part of the agenda item off, which was the action to approve 40% planning, because I don't know what the cost is. I don't know how we're going to do it. I need to brief Chris a little bit more detail of what I've determined out there, walking and talking to the residents, and I'll pause there.
Okay, thank you very much, Pete. Bill. Pete, I know that you're just chomping at the bits with engineering type questions, so I'm going to, this will not be an action item this evening, and I'm going to open it up for discussion.
So Bill, when we lived in Houston, we would get flooding all the time, and you're absolutely right. When you have low spots and the water travels very, very quickly, cars can overturn very easily, and people don't have the perception a lot of times on how deep the water is and how quick that it's moving, and their cars flip over, and in Houston, you could almost count on somebody's car flipping over every year and somebody drowning almost every year. But my question is, and as you've pointed out, is that for a project like this to take hold, in order to do all the engineering, in order to do the installation, we're looking probably a couple years at least. So my question has to do with potential short-time solutions that might be implemented in order to mitigate some of the risks that we have. And in Houston, one of the things that they would do is they would put level signs in areas that were very, very shallow. They would put signs to be able to show the depth of the water. So when somebody would come to it, they would understand how deep the water was. And Houston would also have the ability to close streets. So when they had flooding, they would shut down certain streets, especially where the danger was very high. But my question has to do with, have we considered any short-time solutions for the time that it might take to actually implement a long-term solution?
Well, I will just say right off the bat, we often close all three of those streets. We have barricades, and our public works gets alerted. Actually, in many cases, the police are the first there to do it. And if we anticipate an event like that, the public works will pre-position that stuff, and then we'll do it. And the same thing with Ripple Creek. Used to be Chimney Rock was a big problem until we solved that one. Chris, you have anything?
Yeah, I was going to add that on Turkey Creek in particular, that's a dead-end road. And so when you close it, you trap people. And so if they need emergency services during a flood, there's no way to get emergency services there. That's one of the reasons this project ranked as high as it did when we did the master plan.
And in fact, in 2002 and 1998, I am told that both Turkey Creek and Honeybee were closed, and those residents at the dead end were cut off for a period of time. Now, you know, you're not talking days, because typically the rain will go quickly and it dissipates fairly quickly.
Yeah. Pete.
So Chris, as we do these projects, one of the things that I've learned over time is it's, whether it's a legal project, whether it's an engineering project, no matter what it is, it's always important to understand who the lead is leading this. So I know that y'all have worked this up. Can you tell us a little bit about who is the lead engineer on this project and kind of the qualifications?
It's a two-part project. VAMSHE would lead the hydrology and hydraulics portion of it and the modeling of it. VAMSHE's been doing nothing but H&H and drainage design for the past 20 years. And then Bobby Torres would manage the design of the actual open channels and preparation of construction documents. Both of those would do that under my supervision. And with this one, if we start planning now, we've got roughly 2 years to go from 0 to 100% plans. That's a lot longer than we had on the last project. And so we'll be able to give it the attention that it needs. We've also learned some lessons on the past projects we've done in Chavano Park. In the past, we tried to reduce the cost of engineering in certain aspects, and what we've learned is we shouldn't do that. On something like this, engineering fee is typically 10% on the street project. We did it at, I think, 8%. So we'd probably be closer to the 10% so we can actually give it, 100% of the effort that's involved. And then also when we do, there are no easements out here. I would recommend as we go through design, we identify where we need easements and we actually acquire those easements, whether it be dedication or acquisition, whatever the need may be. From what Bill's told me, many of these property owners would probably dedicate the easements to us, but at least then we have a legal document that says this is where we are authorized to work.
Yeah, I don't anticipate any problem getting a temporary construction easement like we did on Bent Oak and Windmill and Chimney Rock. I think you'll get 50-50 on, the volunteer permanent easements, depending on what it is and what the project is going to be.
Right.
Okay. Anyone else? Buddy?
Yeah, Bill, I know 2017 when they did KW did the engineering, it was broken down into pieces, and we identified several drainage projects that, if I remember right, it was like $6.2 million total, and I know that they were separated. I believe this one might have been $1.2 million in cost. I'm interested, eventually when we put the data together, what the actual cost, the increase through the inflation and time period, what's it gonna cost us now? Prior to that, there was an engineering study done in the 90s, which we were able to find. I know Richard Laser was able to find it. My whole point on that is we keep on doing engineering studies, but we've yet to act on it. And hopefully this time around we can act on it and come up with the money if it's feasible. That's the only comment I wanted to make.
Okay, thank you, buddy.
I just
Conrad?
will summarize, say, in the 2020 report, the opinion and probable cost at that time was $3,070,000. That was for the Turkey Creek. For Elm Spring is 1.3, and Ripple Creek almost 1.3 as well. So you're right.
Okay. Conrad?
Are there any septic systems through this pathway?
There are septic systems in all the backyards or front yards of all the properties associated with it. Most of them are out of the floodplain and not in the direct path, but obviously there's runoff that does occur, and I would anticipate some of them probably got flooded and so forth.
In that video, it looked like one, but then the next question is, are there new ones that have been put in, new septic systems that were aerobic, most likely?
When I looked at each of the properties and I walked the backyards and the front yards of every one of those properties that are highlighted in yellow, I've even the two I haven't highlighted in yellow, I've walked those properties and I've talked to those people. They gave me permission. I did not see any direct concerning septic system that would need to be moved or in danger.
But that is something that we would verify through survey. I mean, that would be one of the first things we do is a topographic survey, and we would pick up any visible septic tanks at that time. Now, if it's like my parents' house that was built in the 70s, they buried the septic. those we won't be able to see unless the property owner has direct knowledge of where it's located, and then we can identify it. Or we could do subsurface utility exploration and attempt to find it that way.
All those laterals should be on our building plans in the city of Chavano Park.
If we have them. Most of the, literally, we have all the plans, we have plans from typical, different sets of plans for all the old side. Maybe 25% have accurate septic plans.
Okay.
We're currently going through every one of those folders, and we're actually scanning them in. Marissa is, and we're putting on electric files. That's why we see some of the humorous things we're seeing.
Yeah.
And your parents live where?
They live out in Medina County.
Medina County,
I mean,
okay, I
so
thought-
it's backwoods out there, but
Yeah.
they're, back in the 70s, they did a conventional septic, and it was completely buried. You had no idea there was septic out there except for one clean out up by the house, which was 50 feet away.
Right.
Okay. Bill, you had, you listed all the homes that you've talked to. Does this have any effect upon the people in De Zavala Estates and the homeowner behind Bikeway?
The homeowner behind Bikeway, you can go to that map, fast forward, keep going forward a little bit. Yes, so the one in blue at the very bottom of that slide, I spent a couple hours talking to that lady. She was very interesting. We had a fresca, and we enjoyed that together. But she was here in 2000. No, she was here in '98, in 2002 with her family, and the water went all the way up to their house. They subsequently built between a 4 and an 8 foot wall. It's basically a almost like a seawall barrier, and in some spots it's 4 feet wide, all brick and mortar. I mean, rock and mortar. In some spots it's 8 feet. It's amazing. I thought it might be just kind of flimsy, and that's why I said I need to go talk to her and see because whatever we do up there, we can't affect what's going on there. And we'll need to get the engineers out there to look at it. My unengineered but educated guess is that they've done a pretty good job of it. She lives there alone. She's elderly, but she was interested in what we're doing and supportive as well.
Okay. And then as far as De Zavala Estates, the water all goes in and it's kind of right in their backyard.
It should not be increasing the quantity, right, Chris? And you can answer this better.
As we design it, I mean, we'll design it such that there's no impact to Almost Creek. And so anyone that abuts Almost Creek is not going to see any difference in water surface elevations.
Okay. Well, the waters, I would think, would get there a whole lot faster.
It will get there faster, but when you look at the timing of the hydrograph coming through this area and the timing of the hydrograph coming down Almost Park, and I'm getting very engineering now, and I apologize, but the storm events, or the runoff from those storm events, will hit at different times, so that this will drain through first, and then the main stem of Almost will come through.
Okay.
We will make sure that there's no increase in water surface elevation. That's one of our critical things that we have to hit.
Okay. Do we have any other questions before we go to the next agenda item? Okay, Chris, thank you very much, Bill.
Yeah, thank you.
Brings us to item 8.3, discussion action, formulation of a compensation review team. Pete?
Yeah, so I'll make this relatively quick. Every year we go through the budget cycle. And as we go through this budget cycle, one of the big portions of the cost for the city is our city employees. And one of the things that we want to make sure is that when we look at our city employees is they're fairly compensated for what they do, and that we do, and that we kind of spend the time to make sure that is correct. Yeah, so this is, I put together kind of a quick slide just to kind of hit some of the key points, but to kind of sum it up and to be brief, what I'm recommending is that we establish a compensation review team to consider consisting of the city secretary, the finance director, and 2 aldermen selected by the mayor. So.
The mayor's going to select the 2 aldermen. Okay.
So one of the things that I'm always reminded is what you see depends upon where you stand. And so in the past we've had these compensation review teams together, And I do think that it's wise to change who does this, because different people bring different aspects and different views to the committee. So I'll leave it at that.
Well, I would love to see Buddy do this if you've got time, Buddy, because he's got different type of experiences, and you're bringing this forward, and I think I should probably offer you the opportunity to do it as well, because you brought it forward.
And I've got the time and the passion to do this as well.
Okay, so now I'm interested in you making your motion, because I made a
All right,
recommendation.
so,
What'd you say?
I said Pete?
I didn't hear you.
so the motion is that I move that the city of Chavano Park adopt the formation of a compensation review team to provide city council with recommendations for adjustment and improvement to the city compensation practices, and that the two members representing that from council would be Alderman Buddy and myself. And we would also include the city secretary and the finance director.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Buddy has seconded it. We're now open for discussion. There being no discussion, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. The motion carries 5-0. Item 8.4, discussion recommend amendments to ordinances regarding EV chargers. Where's Curtis? Oh, okay. Curtis, before you get started, congratulations on the really superb effort with Google Fiber. I know that Pete would probably like to pull back some of his time from item number 4 and say a few comments, and I'll let you take that reserve time and use it at this point, because it's not an agenda item.
So it's funny, it's kind of like the Wizard of Oz, that you don't see all the things that are going on behind the curtain, but Curtis has done a fabulous job of pulling a lot of things together. I mean, it's hard to believe we started this almost 2 years ago, and it was funny because the companies that we thought we would attract weren't the companies we ended up with. So a lot of different work with a lot of different companies, setting the stage and making this happen. So we hats off to you, Curtis. I very much appreciate for all you've done and to make this a reality. When you look at the ability to increase our infrastructure with high-speed internet, there's a lot of people that are very, very excited, and we're starting to build the foundation for the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. So the item tonight is just for discussion, and we did take this to Planning and Zoning at the March 5th meeting to get their kind of guidance and what their thoughts more on it. But with our new ordinance, before Planning and Zoning can pick up an ordinance to make amendments, if you recall, that ordinance, it has to get guidance from council first. So that's why we're bringing this to you now. This is the very half-baked version we have in front of you tonight, but I'll run through it. So in 2022, if you recall, we established an ordinance for the first time where we allowed electric vehicle charging stations in the city. We allowed them in B1 and B2, which was consistent with convenience stores, gas stations. We treated them exactly like gas stations. You have to have a special use permit, which requires public notice, a public hearing, and all those. We've only had one since we've established that in 2022, and that was for USIO on Loch Elselma in 2023, and that was an application for one charging station for 2 parking spaces, and that was not their primary use of that building. It was USIO, which I think was a technical services company. They wanted that mainly for their employees, their executive staff for use. But that business owner said that he was perfectly fine with the public using this charger. But the problem with the ordinance we did in 2022 is that we didn't define what EV charging stations were. And so the reason why this went to city council on a public hearing and a zoning and the $750 application fee in addition to a permit and CPS approval was because it was electric vehicle charging station, even though it was just one. So with this, we thought that was a little bureaucratic, us staff. For a business to just want to install one for the purposes of they're using it for their customers, their employees, that was a little bit too much to ask. That was our thoughts. So we suggest that when we started looking at this, P&Z, getting to the charging, that's very complex. You have level 1, 2, 3 chargers. They have different kilowatts. It gets very complex. Our initial draft we gave to Planning and Zoning was not to make this overly complex and get into all the weeds of all this, but to just define what electric vehicle charging stations are and then differentiate it. So I'll just read our proposed definition as it reads right now. So we would define it. This would be completely new language. Means a parking spot equipped with a power supply device, including alternating current, direct current, wireless charging devices that supplies electrical power for charging electric vehicles. A single EV charging station can serve 2 parking spots. So pretty straightforward. Then we would allow it only 1 to 2 of these charging stations for an existing business. So if USIO, if they under this proposal, if they just wanted 1 charging station for the business, they could install it just with a standard permitting process of the city, CPS approval. There wouldn't need to be the special use permit from City Council, Planning and Zoning. But this would still preserve any a company more than 2. Even if it was an existing business, they wanted 3 or 4 of these. They wanted to outfit their entire parking lot with these. They would have to come to Planning and Zoning and City Council for approval. So the way we broke this up, all permitted uses in B1, B2, and O1, all our business districts can allow up to 2 charging stations of level 2 or 3 capability as an accessory use on its parcel by use of employees of the public, and level 1 charging stations prohibited. We actually asked our attorney if we are able to do that, but right now, from Planning and Zoning, one of the first things they talked about was, well, the level 3 chargers are great. You can be in and out in 20 minutes, but these level 1s and 2 require people to leave their cars for hours and hours on end, which creates vandalism, creates criminal opportunities. Do we really want, right now, level 1 chargers under ordinance, because it's completely undefined, could be installed. So we're gonna come with a proposal, can we restrict that down to maybe 2 or even 3 level chargers that would be installed here in the city? Then moving on, all EV charging stations require electrical permit in the city, must be installed meeting the requirements of National Electric Code. Any business that installs more than 2 requires a special use permit approved by the P&Z and City Council. That's still preserved. And businesses in O1 cannot install more than 2 because in our current ordinance stand today, O1 cannot have EV charging stations. So we wouldn't change anything with how the overall ordinance is set up, and that we treat EV charging stations like gas stations, but this technology is slightly different in that very few people would install 1 fuel pump at their business, but some businesses are electing to install 1 charging station on their business. So this proposal is just to take it to Planning and Zoning and start the process potentially to amend our ordinances. And that concludes my presentation.
Buddy.
Yeah, Curtis, as I recall, the last time we did this a few years ago, I believe I voiced my concern, and it goes to Chief Dover, whether or not we have the proper infrastructure to support the level 3, as you put, because that was an issue back then. And then who's going to support if they go 2 or more of these level 3, the infrastructure? Do we have the proper infrastructure as far as transformers to regulate that kind of electricity flow to support that operation? And who's going to pay for that?
Okay. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor. As far as responding to an emergency with that being involved, of course, dealing with electricity is always dangerous. However, by design and then by installation by code, there's some fail safes that are put in there. I think you might have more of a risk with the vehicle themselves than with the charging station. That being said, I plan on addressing during budget this year the purchase of what they're now recommending for extinguishing electrical vehicle fires. It's like a large fire blanket, for lack of better word. So not a great expense, but something that I think would be good to talk about at budget, and maybe the purchase of those for each of the ladder truck and the engine. But that being said, I think without doing a little bit more study on it, I think we'd be safe and we'd be okay.
But you're talking about purchasing that not tied to the charging station, but the increased quantity of electrical cars everywhere,
correct.
And so that's the overall threat. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Conrad?
I'm just Do we have standards we're gonna be referencing on this for the permit? Or is this just up to the city?
And, no, that's something that we did talk about a little bit, you know. I think I think the Department of Energy is the one that regulates, has these standards for all these. If we reference maybe just Department of Energy standards, I don't think we'd want to provide our own standards beyond maybe something like preventing these very slow chargers where, again, you have cars left overnight.
We can look at that in the building permit process, talking to our building inspector, what is his methodology for going through that? What are we using the International Electric Code? Does that apply or not? I don't know the answer, but
Well, I guess like in the wording here, we're gonna reference a standard. That's the question, but. You
Yes,
hope there's
that-
not multiple standards, I guess is what I'm getting at, that we're gonna.
Yes, I believe that would be a good thing to add.
Okay. Pete?
Yeah, so just a comment to kind of address Buddy's question. I actually interviewed the company that actually put that EV charger in, and he kind of went through the whole process of what they went through. And the key things that really stuck out was the fact that working with CPS, there's a lot of oversight that goes in. A lot of studies to make sure that they can properly provide the power to that station. And he mentioned the fact that it took over a year just to get the CPS part done. He said the installation of everything else was done like within several months, but the CPS took over a year.
Okay. Couple of questions. Direct current. Okay. Yeah, just don't run into direct current very often in the United States. Second thing, Curtis, I think that you're going to have to add definitions for level 1, level 2, level 3, or you're going to have to incorporate them through the uniform electrical code, just letting you know that I don't know what that is, and Buddy's much smarter than I am because he's been the chairman of planning and zoning pretty recently, and I don't know that he knows what those are.
So you unfortunately didn't read my article.
Actually, I tried to avoid those things, but yeah. That would have just created additional questions. Bill, do you have any comments?
no, I mean, the biggest concern is someone that was commercially producing these and then selling them like a gas station. That would be our biggest concern, not so much the one-offs. And I think Curtis identified this as a great opportunity to, minimize the risk there, but prevent what we don't want to be a gathering place like a gas station where cars are staying there a long time.
It's one of those things that I don't know that City Council needs to put its moniker on each one of them and stamp it. I do think you need to put your moniker on each one of them, and I would recommend that you include in the ordinance that you report back to City Council. So if suddenly we've got 75 of these things in the city, City Council wasn't surprised that we have 75 of these things in the city, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We do that on a lot of different ordinances, just to report back on the ordinance status. Okay. No other questions? Brings us to item 8.5, discussion. We've got 2 minutes on this item, Bill. Discussion, set city manager annual performance and salary review, April, City Council. Bill, you handed out a piece of paper for us.
I just gave it to you, Mayor, because you're.
Oh, okay.
But I do have a slide.
Okay. These dates are the dates that we've been using in the past. Does anybody have an objection to these dates? Okay, if there's no objection, then we will set the city manager's annual review for April the 28th to be met in accordance with the dates that are provided. Okay? Brings us to item number 9. We got 1 minute. Do we have a motion to adjourn? We have a motion to adjourn from Lee. Thank you, Lee. Do I have a second from Maggie? She's ready to go. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The motion carries. We're adjourned.